Hey everybody, it's the Burger Dude, and today I want to show you how I make a cheesy gordita crunch, but vegan and better. And if you're not familiar, a cheesy gordita crunch is a popular item at Taco Bell, and it's essentially a quesadilla that's spooning a hard shell beef taco, and it's super freaking delicious. I've eaten my fair share of these back in the day, and this vegan version hits all the notes. The good news is it's fairly easy to veganize, so let's get started. Now, the first thing you're going to need is some flatbread, which is serving as the gordita. I found this at Trader Joe's, but you can find them at, most grocery stores should have something like this. If you can't find this, you could make it. You could also just use like a regular flour tortilla if you like. Either way, it's going to be super good, so don't sweat it. And next, we're going to need a super stuffer extra large taco shell. You could totally use regular sized taco shells if you can't find these extra large ones. It's going to be totally great no matter what, so don't sweat that as well. And then next, what we want to get is the beefless grounds. I'm using, again, from Trader Joe's. This stuff is really good. It cooks up really quickly, and for a recipe like this, it's perfect. You can obviously use whatever kind of vegan ground beef you like, but for me, this was totally perfect. And then for the spicy ranch, you can just take some ranch and spice it up with some jalapeno brine or some chipotle powder or chipotles and adobo, which I'll show you later. But you could also make your spicy ranch from scratch, which is what I'm going to try for the first time here. And all I essentially did was get a non-vegan ranch recipe that I found that looked pretty easy to veganize. And that's what I did. So I got some vegan buttermilk going here. I wish I would have used more vinegar in this recipe. It wasn't quite as zippy as I would have liked. And I'm I'm going to blame this sour cream that I found. This stuff is not the worst vegan sour cream. It's also not the best. I wanted to get the stuff by Kite Hill, but they were out of it. So I went with this stuff. It's fine. It's not, like I said, the best. It's not the worst. You might just have to compensate by putting in a little bit more vinegar or lemon juice. Essentially, all I'm doing here is I'm really just kind of replicating what I imagine they did for the spicy ranch. So I put in some habanero brine. You could also use some jalapeno brine. The thing to keep in mind, though, is the more liquid you throw in this, the more liquidy it's going to be, obviously. So if you want it to really have that kind of thick sort of ranch consistency, then try using something like this lactic acid as opposed to vinegar. The lactic acid is totally vegan. It gives it kind of that sour sort of, savory sort of cheesy taste. Cheesy? Sour cream. It just makes it taste like sour cream, essentially. It is used a lot in vegan cheeses. So I threw it together and I was like, that's all right. What about we make it a little bit spicier though, because it wasn't quite that spicy. So I threw in some of this ghost pepper powder. If you have this, great. If not, you could use cayenne. Again, just customize it and keep tasting it until it tastes like you like it. And another option is to just kind of take a shortcut, which I'm going to explore here. So I got some of my vegan ranch from Follow Your Heart, and I just added some of this ghost pepper powder, and that stuff was dynamite as well. The next day, I wanted to do a few more tests. So I got some more of that ranch, and then I added in one of my favorites, the chipotles and adobo. And I got to say, that was my favorite one, like by far. So if you have access to those two products, I highly recommend throwing it together like that. I also took my original spicy ranch and I decided I'm just going to throw some more vinegar in there to see if that will zip it up. And it did. It was really good. Again, it got a little bit thinner than I would have liked. I could maybe add some xanthan gum into it if I wanted to make it thick. But to be honest, your best bang for the buck is this stuff here on the right. That Chipotle Ranch, that was something else. So put that together if you can, or if not, throw together your own spicy ranch. It's up to you. Now, speaking of shortcuts, you could totally use some taco seasoning like this. Just check the back. Sometimes they have milk powder in it. Of course, I don't know why they throw milk powder in there, but they do. Otherwise, you could just totally throw together your own taco seasoning like I'm doing here. And you can totally, again, customize this however you like. You can add more smoked paprika. You could not use like MSG, which I think, I use MSG because Taco Bell uses MSG and we're trying to make some Taco Bell. So if you don't want to use MSG, don't. It's not going to taste as good though. Masa harina, another really nice thing to have in there. Same with the oregano, chipotle powder, all these things totally optional, but it's not going to taste as good if you leave them out. I don't know what to tell you, unless you put something else equally flavorful in there. So throw that together. And now what we want to do is brown up our beefless vegan ground beef that we got. And if you have a Trader Joe's near you, don't sleep on this stuff. It's really good. It's super flavorful. The texture is spot on. And this stuff cooks up really quick. It's already basically cooked. You're really just kind of reheating it. And then we're going to add, obviously, all of that taco seasoning that we got in there. And then once we stir it around and toast some of those seasonings just for a minute or two, we're going to add in 3/4 of a cup of some beef broth, vegan of course, or some veggie broth works as well. And you just want to reduce that down for another minute or so until it looks something like that. And now we're almost done. We're almost ready to put our cheesy gordita crunch together. The only thing we need next is our cheese, of course. And the first time I did my test on this, I just grated some of this cheese. I threw it on one of those flatbreads and I microwaved it, and it doesn't really melt. It just made, and then by the time it did melt, the flatbread was totally like wet and soggy. So I said, you know what, screw it. Let's just do what we always do when we want to get vegan cheese to melt. Let's just make a cheese sauce. So that's what we're doing. Throwing in all that cheese in a pot, and then a little bit of plant milk, unsweetened. Always make sure it's unsweetened. And then just keep stirring your cheese until it gets nice and melted. Add more plant milk if you need to make it thinner. Otherwise, heat up your flatbread. I like to do mine directly on the stovetop over a burner. And then we're going to give it a liberal slather in of that cheese sauce that we just made. And just make sure you get every inch of that flatbread covered in cheese like so. And then next what we want to do is get that extra large super stuffer taco shell. And now we're just going to make sure that they spoon and hug and become one. And the cheese is going to keep them together. And then pile up as much of that taco seasoned vegan ground beef that you got. Give a nice drizzling of that spicy ranch that you put together. And then just to make it healthy, let's throw a little bit of lettuce on top, followed by some finely grated vegan cheddar cheese. I'm using some more of that Daya. And my friends, now your cheesy gordita crunch is ready to be eaten. And this was just like Taco Bell, but better. I'm going to say it. It was better than Taco Bell. Maybe that's a low bar. I don't know. I know that I used to love Taco Bell. I mean, I still go there as a vegan. You can figure it out. There's no cheesy gordita crunches for vegans. Who knows? I know that they're supposed to be getting some vegan beef. I don't know when they're going to get vegan cheese or vegan spicy ranch. Probably not anytime soon. So in the meantime, make this. Also, if you can find this stuff at the store, try to get the Taco Bell hot sauce, because the next day I had some of this and it was even more like Taco Bell. So if you're like me and you used to eat these things all the time and you miss them, I really highly recommend this recipe. I think you're going to dig it. If you do make it, let me know how it went. Tag me in your photos on Instagram. I hope you're all doing great, and I'll see you next week.